these wicked problems that we deal with today, nobody's got the full answer. Each group needs knowledge from the other, but there's no way for them to share their uncertainties with each other and no way for them to pool their knowledge. So various forms, consensus processes, joint fact-finding, all these sort of tools that are slowly being invented, they're there. And what I think often happens is this: when you want to have system change, whether it's in a criminal court, drug court, or the way discovery is done in multi-party litigation, when you want to have some sort of system change, there are several distinct roles, and if someone tries to play all of them, it probably isn't going to work. One role is the sort of the prophet, the agitator, who says something is wrong and something needs to be done. There's another role, which is the leader of important stakeholder factions. There are a few people that have enough respect from their respective faction that people will believe that if they go into a conversation, they can trust them, even if they can't watch them. And that if they agree to something, they probably won't sacrifice the interests of the group. So that's your leader, or your leaders. Then there are the actual members of each of the faction. Sometimes the problem is that one faction is very well organized and has a leader, but another faction is disorganized, doesn't have anyone who can represent them in any sort of negotiation. And the final role is that of a facilitator, somebody who can be multi-partial and serve the role of designing and then keeping safe the space in which these various parties are going to come. Somebody that they can trust, that is not going to turn on them and embarrass them. And if you can find a situation with those pieces, you've got an agitator that says we need to do something, leaders who are secure in their position as leaders, facilitator, and then some sort of formal process that everybody understands the rules, everybody understands who the facilitator is, and that the process is designed not to put any one of the groups at a big disadvantage. Then you can, for a moment anyway, in that one space, create a problem-solving team or approach. And the cool thing is, if you've done it once, oftentimes the same people then have built up some trust so they can do it again. The reason there isn't more of this being done, there are a couple of reasons. One is that every process is sui generis. That is, you have to start from the very beginning before you start one of these multi-party processes to figure out what the rules are, what the resources are going to be, who's going to be the facilitator. There's no standing entity the way there is a standing court. In party-to-party mediation, we've now got mediation centers and a mediation practice. But there's no standing entity for a multi-stakeholder problem solving and facilitation on policy issues. Without that standing entity, when the opportunity arises, the window of opportunity arises for people to come together, it takes too long to put the structure together. By the time you put the structure together, unless there's a sort of bolt of lightning, the opportunity's gone, because the opportunities are very fleeting, because the situations are fluid and people's perceptions of their interests are so fluid. So if we're going to find a way to increase the use of sort of formal collaborative processes, we need the routinization and standardization of them, just like we have routinization and standardization of litigation. And we need the creation of some sort of standing institutions, so that there's a consensus council for the Southeast region or something. People have done it before, they know what the rules are, the organization's already set up, it's already got an assessment process built in that everybody agrees with, it's got some sort of funding, so that when the opportunity arises, you can go into it. So we're a long way from the widespread use of facilitated problem solving in public policy. But I think there are lots of opportunities for it, and maybe somebody's going to figure out how to institutionalize this in the future, and we'll see more of it. I became an advocate the old-fashioned way. I was born poor. I was born into a social class where I saw people ground up and spit out and hurt on a daily basis, where people weren't heard, where bad things happened to good people. And I just got that in my belly. And so I sort of spent the rest of my life going around looking for problems that needed to be solved. The other thing I have to say is I enjoy the process of figuring out something complicated and helping people. It's a wonderful feeling at the end of the day for someone to say, my situation is better because you were here. I think I got that one in Sunday school. And the last source of it is, oddly enough, that my desire for people to find solutions and not keep the fight alive, that happened at home. Because I saw two people who fought every day of their waking life, from the time they got up to the time they collapsed into bed, and it was a miserable place to live. And so I've simultaneously gone back and forth, I could say, between an instinct to fight for the little guy against the big evil guy, sort of the David and Goliath scenario, and an understanding that if people do that, then one won't vanquish the other, they'll just keep fighting against each other. So I sort of in my career ended up going back and forth between the two. Maybe I understand the perspective, and I deeply respect the perspective of those who say you have to fight for justice, and those who say, no, if we can just get people to sit down and find common ground, things will be better. I guess I think that both are true, and maybe that's why I'm both open to and sympathetic to people on both sides of this sort of divide of approaches or how they see the world. Over and over, I find that dualities, setting up A versus B, adversarial versus collaborative, cooperative versus competitive, setting those up as boxes, it ends up never working for me. I constantly see them as values and tension, and that the adjustment is not the triumph of one over that's needed. The adjustment that's needed is not the triumph of one over the other, but it's changing the mix. And I think in domain after domain right now, the mix, we're seeing people trying to figure out some way to move from less competitive to more collaborative, because the costs of competitiveness have gotten to the point that the costs are too high. Both the personal costs for the gladiators, and also for the admission price for those who come to watch the gladiators joust.